I'm very small. How do I become successful and grow? And how long is it going to take to hit 500,000 in revenue? Well, it's a very, very difficult question to answer because it depends on so many variables that I do not have intel on to answer it appropriately. Okay. How long does it take? We have some people who've been in business for 10 plus years and they're at the 500,000. It's taken them 10 years to get there. We have other members who have, like Scott Hodges-Odigan, who started his business in the middle of the pandemic. He came to a rapid implementation accelerators. He joined accelerators in July of 2020. And within a year, he shot, I think he got over the $1 million mark. You might have to fact check me on that, Jeff, but I know it was over 500,000.
He did it. He did in the first year. It was well over $1 million.
Yeah. And so we have some members that do that. So, and he was starting a new MSP. He had experience in running it. So again, it's like, how long does it take you to hit that? Well, it depends. Like, how aggressive are you going to be in selling and marketing? Are you a good salesperson? Are you well connected? Even if you're not being well connected will definitely help you. I mean, like Robert Herjavec, the nice shark on Shark Tank, Robert's a friend. We've had him at multiple events, and he runs Sedaris now, which is like a $1.5 billion a year MSSP. His first year in running the Herjavec group, which was an MSSP, now Sedaris. I mean, they did over, they had plans, I think, to do 15 million in their first year because he had all the connections. I think they did a little bit over 1 million or 2 million or something like that. And it was just him. He hired another sales guy and one engineer and a secretary. That's how he started the business. And part of what helped him is he's built businesses before. He had that experience. He had a lot of connections, et cetera, et cetera. So for him, that was like, a cakewalk. Now you're small, I don't know your business background, but what I can tell you, what'll make the difference is the amount of energy, effort, and time you put into sales. If you put very minimal effort into knocking on doors, prospecting, networking, calling people, I'm going to say hustling. I know a lot of you take that as a bad term, but hustling business. If you're going to be really aggressive about that, I think you could get 500,000 in a year. I don't think that's out of the question. It's going to be a lot of work because when you're growing the business, you're going to also have to hire people to do the work, right? So you got to make sure you do things like price yourself properly so you have enough margin and profitability to hire people. So you're going to have to make sure you do that. You're going to have to make sure that what you sell is scalable. So when you're selling a program, when you're small, you got to think about scaling it. So custom, like we used to always say, custom is the C word around here, right? Because custom is not scalable. So we want to do packages and one to many versus all these custom projects. So when you're small, you got to be thinking about what you can deliver with automation, with consistency that you can scale. If you have different packages, everybody's on different package, everybody's on different price plan, everybody gets a different thing, everybody's got custom solutions, that's going to be really hard for billing. It's going to be hard for customer service. It's going to be hard for scaling. That's why when I started my business, I just had the toolkit. I didn't go in, all the things we have now, holy shit, I can barely keep up, right? But when I started, for the first 3 years or so, I had the toolkit. I had an apprentice club membership. That was it. 2 things, 2 products. That was it. And I grew that and sold the crap out of that to get a crap ton of clients. So that way I could start making some income, recurring revenue, and start hiring people, right? So I think you could hit it in half a year if you really got after it, okay? I think if it takes you more than 3 years, I think you're not doing, that's too long. At 3 years, you should be hitting $1 million. If you're really getting after it, if you're selling and packaging things, and yes, you got to do a lot of work in it, you're going to have to get it right. But I'd say definitely within 1 year to 3 years. Jeff, I don't know. Do you agree with that? Do you disagree?
Yeah, definitely with that. One of the most common things that I see is within the channel is that the 20-year company that is now feeling like a big shot because they're $1.5–2 million. Like that took way too long to be able to get to that mark there. And that person, a lot of times they just weren't getting after it for quite some time. And maybe we know of them now because they are getting after it and they're seeing like, hey, time to stop screwing around and just growing just by referrals here. One of the most important things that I tend to see from a growth, and this is not just a catch-all that if you do this, you're going to grow, is getting around other successful MSPs, which is why we do things like Roadshow and Boot Camp and Rapid Implementation Workshop and others. It's not just like Robin and I, if we didn't have to go and fill an event here, then it would make life a whole lot easier for us.
Yeah, I
But
mean, like, shit, I wish I didn't
yeah.
have to do marketing anymore.
but it's so important for members to be able to get around others. I mean, for some of our producer club members, that's the biggest thing that they have is when they get around members. It's not even always the content that's on stage or being talked about. It's being able to figure out. I don't know how many times that I've heard people that said, "Hey, I found such and such of whoever this person was at one of the events. They answered the question that I've for 2 years I've been struggling with, and they're going to help me with it." And so, that's kind of one of those things too, is that you got to look at how do you get out of the rut of whatever you've been doing so far. Now that might be different than if you just started up the business, you haven't been in a rut yet, but it's even more important then because it's that trying to get that momentum right from the beginning. So I did look up, I think it's probably Gian Greco. Debbie we're probably both mispronouncing it on Tony's name, but that sounds kind of Italian. There is that, I looked it up on here and he's attending Chicago Roadshow. And so, that's one of the things that Tony's pointed in the right direction already is getting around 300 other MSPs in person and being able to come up with that question and talking with people, not just sitting there on the side, but talking with others, finding those that are more successful, that have grown, because you can learn so much from someone. If you're trying to get to 500,000, being able to talk with someone that's 2.5, 3 million, and they were in your shoes 2-3 years ago, like that's super valuable to be able to get that type of mentorship, even if it's that mentorship just in a lunch conversation.